What's up, y'all? It's your boy JTMM, aka JustTenMoreMinutes, aka the Freakin 10, back again with another Sabaton history episode. This one is Race to the Seas. The song itself I really liked. There's something about it that connected with me, and I don't know really what it was. I mean, I liked the background beat. The lyrics were good, and I know there was that one extended section that I was just gushing over where it's talking about, look at the king and soldier fighting shoulder to shoulder, and just the way they extended the shoulder I really liked. But there was something else about it. I still haven't figured it out, and I've listened to the song a couple of times, and I just can't pinpoint what exactly is drawing it to me. So I'm ready to look at the history, kind of get some background on it, see what it's all about. That being said, let's check it out.
Hello everyone, I'm Joachim from Sabaton.
And I'm Indy Nidell.
And today we're talking about the race to the sea here on Sabaton History.
On Sabaton History.
I already said that.
I said it again. It deserves to be repeated.
As our Northduke falls and the battle horn calls, our lives would never be the same. We were looking down the barrel of our gun.
September 1914, the Western Front. The giant armies of the Entente and the German Reich are locked in a desperate struggle of survival, only 6 weeks after the Great War began. People don't realize how deadly the opening battles of the war, when it was a war of movement, actually were. On August 22nd, for example, the French had 27,000 men killed.
Wow.
Not total casualties, killed. For the entire rest of the war, that would remain the highest single-day death toll any nation took of the whole war. But the initial plans of both sides soon failed, and the beginning of a deadly stalemate set in, and both sides looked north, trying to find the last open gaps in the line. Whoever got there first, whoever put enough weight behind their punches to outflank the other side, might still gain quick victory. This was the race to the sea. We are about to engage in a battle on which the fate of our country depends, and it is important to remind all ranks that the moment has passed for looking to the rear. All our efforts must be directed to attacking and driving back the enemy. Troops that can advance no further must, at any price, hold on to the ground they have conquered and die on the spot rather than give way. Under the circumstances which face us, no act of weakness can be tolerated. On September 4th, 1914, the German advance into France changed its axis. The First Army under Alexander von Kluck began wheeling around in a wide swing southwest as part of the Germans' Schlieffen Plan. Sensing an opportunity, the French Sixth Army made a move towards von Kluck's now exposed flank. The First Army turned to face the French advance, but in doing so, they created a gap of 50 kilometers between them and the German Second Army on their left. The French Fifth Army and the British Expeditionary Force threw themselves in for a counterattack into this gap. What followed was one of the most decisive engagements of the Great War, perhaps the decisive one. German high command had to either continue the advance and risk being outflanked and enveloped, or stop and withdraw in the hopes of straightening the line. They chose the latter. On the 9th, for fear of losing the war to the Allied counterattack, they ordered the northern wing to halt and fall back. The Battle of the Marne, as it would be remembered, was a major strategic triumph that had prevented the Germans from driving to Paris. The German First and Second Armies were forced back behind the River Aisne and dug in on the heights of Chemin-des-Dames. In hot pursuit, the French Sixth and Fifth Armies hoped to capitalize on their victory, but the troops were exhausted and ammunition was low. And when they arrived at the Battle of the Aisne, they were facing a line of German trenches on the heights with artillery support. No chance to break through. On September 14th, the Allied armies as well dug in. Why dig in? Well, machine guns and modern artillery had changed the face of war. You simply could not survive being exposed. And a man in a hole in the ground, well, you can't shoot him, and you can only bomb him with direct hits. For all the horrors of trench warfare, it was still way less deadly than mobile warfare and way harder to overcome. Anyhow, Paris did not fall as envisioned, but the German attacks had succeeded enough that the German army now stood deep inside French and Belgian territory. Looking at the map, a static line of defenses emerged on the Western Front, from the forts of Verdun all the way to the south down to the Swiss border. But in the north, between the Channel ports and the River Ain, there was still room to maneuver. If the Germans were fast enough and strong enough, they might still be able to turn the French flank. If not, they at least might still capture the important ports of Dunkirk, Zeebrugge, and Calais, and the vital railway between Hazebrouck and Roulers. The French, of course, realized what was about to happen, and they had not only saved themselves at the Marne, there was now a chance for them to turn the tables. If the French army concentrated enough force to the north, the whole German offensive might collapse like a house of cards. What then began was the race to the sea. Now, the name Race to the Sea is one of the most misleading that I know of in military history. No one...
You know, and I'll back it up a little bit here. Now I get it, because, you know, to me, I was thinking probably the same thing a lot of what Indy's about to talk about, or maybe I'm just assuming. Because when I think Race to the Sea, I'm like, well, you know, you're trying to not race to the ports, but actually race to the sea as far as, you know, getting your ships out there and taking over and controlling an actual sea. I don't know if that's what he's about to say or not, but that was my thought. So I'm curious to see, because when I think about what the Germans were doing, right, this is probably one of the times that it makes complete sense, right? Coming over the side, because technically, if they would have come over to the side and been able to come up, right, you know, they then, as we saw, you know, that map up there was kind of clear. They could have taken those ports. They could have taken all of that area. I'm actually quite shocked that they hadn't taken that earlier before going for Paris, so that they could come in with more of an arch. Now, it may just have been a number of troops, whatever. The reason why they didn't do that. Interesting. But, I mean, you see the clear objective, right? I mean, to keep going up. Interesting. Let's keep going.
Race to the Sea is one of the most misleading that I know of in military history. No one was really interested in reaching the North Sea. In fact, both sides needed to execute a swing well before that. Consequently, the commanders pressed all available reserves into the move northwards. The German 4th and 6th armies were pointed northwards to advance without regard for casualties, and the French organized Army Group North of the 2nd and 10th armies with the mantra, attack, attack, attack. Time was of the essence. On September 17th, German 6th Army began moving north, yet as they tried to circle around to the west, the French were already there to meet them. Intercepted radio traffic had alarmed French high command, who were committing 3 corps to match the German advance. What followed was the indecisive Battle of Thier on September 20th, ending in the Germans creating the Saint-Michel salient. It was the first of a series of bloody engagements as the armies shuffled northwards. It really resembled a boxing match, right? With each side throwing wide hooks, hoping to exhaust their opponent with the next swing. Troops pushed forwards as fast as they could. Eventually, they clashed with the forward forces of their enemy, and a series of encounter battles were fought on the move. Then both sides dug in, holding out until reinforcements arrived, and then the whole cycle would repeat itself once more, to the north, ever to the north.
Now the war has come and the battle's begun. We are desperate to know the road. To the war drum we'll be marching till it's done. Lead the way, we will follow into the fray. We will hold the line, we will not be led astray.
Between September 25th and October 4th, the Battle of Picardy was fought. The French 6th Army fought with the German 1st Army northwest of Compiègne. But by now, both sides really felt the loss of their assault divisions. The first month of the war had cost them hundreds of thousands of casualties, foremost among them the well-trained professionals. Now the fight was carried more and more by half-trained wartime volunteers. Young men swept away with their enthusiasm, were thrown into the jaws of artillery and machine guns. They could simply not execute the tactical maneuvers of fire and movement that had been drilled into the professionals, yet their commanders spent their lives all the same. The Battle of Albert was fought from the 25th to the 29th of September, as the German 6th Army continued to move towards Amiens. Hopes were high of crossing the Somme fast enough to envelop the French left flank, but once more, the French were onto them. Their Second Army prevented a major turn just in time, stopping the Bavarians from achieving a breakthrough. By the end of September, both sides had really reached their physical limits. The weather turned bad. The supply situation was just horrendous. Men were marching 30 or 35 kilometers each day, often on empty stomachs, and they were still expected to fight. It was pure chaos, and the heavy cloud cover prevented any recon planes from taking off. The only way of scouting ahead was with cavalry, and smaller screening forces constantly clashed along the routes and rivers, trying to deny each other the room to maneuver. The Battle of La Bassée, beginning October 15th, was the final attempt for a decisive swing. As the German Sixth Army successfully pushed into Lille, they began to threaten the British Expeditionary Force at Ypres. If they were outflanked, they might lose their ports at the coast. In a preemptive strike, the British advanced into Armentières and prepared for a stand at the River Lys. Fighting fiercely in heavy fog, the British were able to defend the crossings and approaches from being exploited by German cavalry. The timely arrival of the Indian Corps helped them to hold out until the Germans exhausted themselves. They might have fielded the largest army in their history so far, yet they could not funnel in troops forever. By November, they had conceded. German High Command put a stop to the major advances as the last gaps on the map were being closed. The constant attacks northwards had failed in forcing the decisive battle. Ypres was out of reach. Their forces were exhausted, ammunition and shells at their limit, casualties were enormous. Each attempt was quickly foiled by entrenched machine guns and artillery, and the Belgians had flooded the Yser Canal. The Germans had lost the race to the sea. The Entente and the Belgians had dashed the German hopes of continuing the Schlieffen Plan and executing a major envelopment of the French left wing. They had successfully established a continuous defensive line from the Belgian coast to the Swiss border, but they had also failed to capitalize on the momentum gained by the victory at the Marne and decisively overtake the Germans in the north. In this, they too had lost the race to the sea. As the days grew colder and the weather worsened, both sides continued to dig in. Ypres was still under threat and would be for the rest of the year, but the end of the race to the sea had ushered in a new phase of the Great War, trench warfare. Troops went from improvised fighting holes and improvised trenches to ever more sophisticated trench lines and mazes of barbed wire and machine guns. Cooler heads might have looked at the situation and realized the deadlock they were now in, but neither the Entente nor the Germans were making a move to call an end to the fighting. Instead, they put their hopes into gathering some strength over the winter. The decisive battle would surely be fought in 1915.
So I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, what would you do in that situation? Because as Indy just said, right? I mean, it's not as if both sides were looking at it and realizing it was a stalemate, right? It was, what are you going to do? What are you doing? What are we going to do? What are you doing? You know, I mean, it was going to be a constant back and forth, as they just said. See, this is why I want to go watch Indy's channel kind of from the start to finish, to go through the timeline in order, right? And understand these battles, because when I think about this one, you know, they're now talking about going into 1915 after the winter. And it's like, okay, strategically, we know what the end goal was for Germany, right? We know what Germany wanted. But from a counteroffensive standpoint, what was the French's plan as far as the defeating of what the Germans wanted? That, to me, this is what's drawing into me, is the psychological piece of it, right? And the strategic piece of it. That's the part that fascinates me more than anything. The stories are great and understanding these individual battles, but that overall picture and the strategy is what's truly just starting to pull me in deeper than I was. And having done these, I mean, obviously I'm deep into it, but now it's getting to the point where I'm like, okay, you know, I'm getting more and more inclined to watch the Indies channel and really start from the beginning and start reacting to those. And if it's not something that people want, then I'll just go watch it on my own, right? But this part is fascinating, and this is where, for me as a content creator, just being 100% transparent as I am with y'all, it's a whole nother level of content that people are already familiar with, but at the same time, it's almost like music, right? It's something that we all understand happened from a historical perspective, but when someone sees that for the first time and starts understanding the bigger picture, it opens their eyes. You get to see that reaction just like we do with music. It opens up a whole nother level for me, nothing from a monetization standpoint, because it's all copywritten, and Sabaton doesn't allow monetization of anything, which doesn't bother me. It doesn't stop me. Obviously, I still cover all their stuff. This is more of just pure interest on my part to truly dive into this and understand the Great War. It's slowly pulling me in, man. Let's see where this goes. I'm baffled by the deadlock. And I know that might sound weird, but I'm truly baffled by the deadlock, just because in these worsening conditions, right? There's got to be at some point, from a strategic standpoint, that you take a step back and go, what are we going to do? And maybe they're going to get into it. We'll see. Let's keep going.
So, before we get started,
Yep.
my shirt, man.
Do you like Melodica? This is not a Metallica shirt. I don't know if any of you guys noticed. This is a Melodica shirt. Do you know,
I did not.
it's not like that Metallica, the merch guy, is dyslexic or dyslexic and made a Melodica shirt. No. Me and my fiancée, Emily, we were watching 2.5 Men, with Charlie Sheen and stuff. And in season 1, there's an episode when Berta, the housekeeper, her daughter, who lived like a trailer park girl, she comes in one of the episodes, and she's wearing a baseball rock concert shirt that says Melodica on it. And Emily looks at me and she goes, "You have to be able to get those online." So we went online, and you can. We ordered 2 matching Melodica shirts. She's got one too. It's a shame that she's not here right now. Otherwise, she could come on and wear her matching Melodica shirt.
He didn't get it.
I don't know. It's pretty cool, right? They got the logo right, didn't they? So I
Kim
don't
didn't even
remember where they
notice it.
ordered
That
it
was
from,
funny.
but I'm sure you could Google it. Wait, is there?
I've seen that episode, but I didn't notice.
What would you didn't notice that?
No.
You thought it was a Metallica shirt.
I've seen all of the 2.5 Men.
Yeah. But what would a Sabaton shirt like this say?
Oh, that's a good one.
Sabaton.
I've seen the
It'd have
one
to have the S.
where they added the extra B, so it becomes Sabaton.
Okay.
Sabaton, I've seen.
Sabaton. That's not as funny as Melodica.
No.
But it's something. I mean, it'd have to. Okay, in the comments, let us know how we could Melodica-ize Sabaton's products.
I've got to stop it there, because this is the funny part. Whenever in these episodes, right, this is where it separates other bands as well. Because this just shows, again, the humor side, right? Joachim is an extremely funny guy. Same as Per. Both have a very strong sense of humor, but it's one of those that's underlying, that it just hits you at certain points where they may say something and you don't get it necessarily until you think back and watch it, or you replay it in your head and you're like, oh, that was funny. But yeah, I could seriously watch Joachim all day sit and talk, because his his personality is just so larger than life. He's so damn underrated. That is a funny shirt. I didn't either. When he said it, I was like, man, that is a Metallica shirt. Until Indy said it, I was like, damn, that's pretty cool.
And then we can make a lot of money. Do you see where I'm going with this, right?
We should actually find out which one is the best and make a T-shirt, one for each member of the band, for you and the person who comes up with it.
That's a great idea. Yeah, you get a special merch.
Yeah.
What a great idea. Okay, let us know in the comments. And now, back to the race to the sea.
Yes.
Okay. Which, as I mentioned briefly in the episode, is actually an incredible misnomer, because the last thing anybody wanted to do was reach the sea.
Let's finish the other guy off before we reach the sea.
It should be the race to finish the other guy off before we reach the sea. Oh no, we've reached the sea. Shit, is this the sea? Maybe it should be called the Shit, is this the sea episode. Okay, change this episode to Shit, are we at the sea already? Damn.
Damn.
4 years of trench warfare. Now, whose idea was this song?
This was me, actually, which was really a tricky thing with being a songwriter is, having done this for 20 years now, or even more. But this is the 10th album. And to sit there and do something that is sort of very stereotypical Sabaton. This song is very Sabaton in its sound, in every element of it. And to do something really Sabaton, not working with someone else, after 10 albums, it's tricky to find that new idea.
Yeah,
Do not copy yourself too much. Of course, I mean, as a songwriter, we all have our own styles, and we are gonna borrow stuff from ourselves, or have our own way of twisting melodies together and stuff. Makes it instantly recognizable. But this one, I was really proud of it, actually, because I think both the story and the music is speaking in the same emotional language. And I mean, to be honest, what I found most inspiring about it is King Albert, the story around him and his family, And to be able, I might have copied myself or borrowed a few things, but it feels like something new. And I'm so fucking happy I could still write a song that still sounds like Sabaton, that isn't only a carbon copy of something, you've done before.
Okay, when we're recording this in February. I've heard the new album like twice. I listened through it with Per, right? But I don't know all the songs well. And I've heard Unkillable Soldier a bunch of times.
Same for me.
But so I can't actually venture opinions on the construction of the song. But from The Great War, for example, you guys did a good job of having still Sabaton, but something new. Like when we were talking about the Red Baron, you were talking, the drum beat on the Red Baron and stuff.
Oh, yeah, the shuffle.
Yeah, the shuffle on that, and that was cool. And I'm like, see, that's something different. And my favorite Sabaton song right now, since the live show at Novi Sad last year, it's probably going to change the next time I see you live, because it changes every time I see you live, was Attack of the Dead Men. And that's something that's that da-da-dum, also then and again, basically, the 100 men,
it's
die
like
again, die again. I mean, that's fucking
broken
genius.
record on repeat.
But that's what I like.
Almost.
So I'm looking forward, is what I'm saying. Looking forward to going through this album, like going through the Great War album. So I'm still coming up with new stuff.
Yeah.
So, and I like, if you think you're really coming up with something new, then probably
there are other songs that are more experimental and very much more different than this.
Yeah.
But this is more of a case where I'm really proud that I managed to something that's really super Sabaton, and I didn't nick it from that song or that song.
Okay.
I probably stole it from all the songs, I guess. But
after 100 songs.
Yes. No, but it's really. A tricky thing to go into a new album, writing it, because instantly as a songwriter, you're sitting there and you are starting a new song, let's say with a piano or a guitar or whatever, and you have this demo, bad sounding pre-production piece of music, and you're comparing that to a best of 10 albums worth of material. Yeah. So it's a really unfair comparison in a way. So, but this was one of the songs that made me feel like, you know what? There's something in there. I can still do this shit,
It's interesting he says that, because he's 100% right. And I think I've said this before, when I've talked about writing songs, is that you always in your mind, right? Like, so when I start one, I'm always sitting there singing along, right? And when I say singing along, I've got a melody in my head as I'm writing the words. Now, for me, I don't know where that melody's coming from. Now, it may be something I just heard on the radio that subconsciously is sitting in my mind that I'm now going through and doing and using to create those lyrics. But when you've actually produced the music, I can only imagine, you coming up with this little part and then having to go compare it against as many songs as they've created. Lyrically, you kind of know. And for him, it's a little bit easier lyrically to not worry about it telling the same story as they're telling these new stories, of the Great War. But that truly fascinates me from a musical piece because he's 100% right. You may have this snippet in your head as you're writing this, and then he's got to go back and compare that to make sure it's still A, true to Sabaton, and then B, not a repeat. Man. Yeah, that really stuck with me. I like that. Let's keep going.
Now, you mentioned Albert. I'm going to take us back to King Albert.
Yep.
Okay. Belgium was neutral, of course, and the violation of Belgian neutrality was the reason Britain went to war. They kind of have to go to war anyway, because in a war between Germany, forget about Russia and everybody for the moment. In a war between Germany and France, one of them would win, and that one would be the dominant one on the European continent, and that would upset the balance of power for Britain. So they're going to go to war with someone or another, and it's great that, great. It's not great that it was the violation of Belgian neutrality, but Belgium, never joined the Allies. Belgium was neutral still till the end of the war. They never became an allied nation. I know that people, say, well, what's the difference? There is a difference. There's a huge difference. You being a Swede being a difference. If you're neutral, you might have people that guarantee your neutrality and stuff, but people don't realize you don't have allies. Like when we talked about the Winter War, right? Swedes, in a huge majority, wanted to join the Finns fighting the Soviet Union in the Winter War. But Sweden did not do that.
Nope.
Because if Sweden officially sent any soldiers, there were plenty of volunteers that went to the war. If Sweden officially sent any soldiers to fight, then Sweden would be at war with the Soviet Union, and Sweden does not have any allies. And what do you think that would mean? So people don't quite realize that. France and Britain and stuff, they were under no guarantee to back Sweden if Sweden had declared war.
No.
So I know people, but I mean, I'm just people don't quite understand the perils of neutrality. It has its good sides and its bad sides. It's not just, we're not interested.
And I mean, in a sense, geography plays a whole lot into it as well.
Sure.
I mean, Belgium being in a place where they happen to be on the way to the destination.
Yeah. But they're on the way to the destination, so we're going to send 3.5 million soldiers in there on the way. You don't mind if we use the roads? You do? Okay, screw you. Fine, we're going to use that. But having said that, even as late as October 1918, the Kaiser and Hindenburg and Ludendorff were saying that any peace must allow for the continued German occupation of Belgium. That they would not sign. This is a month before the actual armistice.
I had no idea.
A month before the armistice, when it was pretty obvious that, the Ottomans were out, Bulgaria was out, there's only Austria and Germany, last men standing for the Central Powers. They're saying, no. We'll consider an armistice, but we have to keep Belgium, which would keep the entire Channel coast pretty much on the other side. And and the French, I'm sure, would be like, okay, we don't really care that much. The British were like, no, go back to the part about Belgium.
That was interesting to watch because you saw, again, this just proves the point of not a gimmick for Sabaton, right? I mean, so many bands may be a gimmick of, hey, here's what we write about. But did you watch Joachim's eyes as Indy gave him this new bit of information, right? His eyes lit up as if to go, oh, That's interesting. I never realized that. That was true, like, knowledge that he gained, and he was excited about it because, again, it just separates them that it's not a gimmick. They truly love history. And there's you go look at some bands, right, that write about certain stuff. Some of them don't necessarily live that motto of what they write about. These guys do. And so to see that, still that he learned something new like that, that was really cool.
And I think King Albert was pretty opposed to that.
Oh, yeah, I would agree.
As well. So I suppose the people in the Congo wouldn't have cared one way or another because they didn't have a good history with the Belgian government, which is an episode for another time.
That's the father.
I know, but it's still an episode. Okay, well, okay. If let's say I'm an oppressed colonial territory, right? And your father has murdered millions of my people. I'm not going to be inclined to like you.
True.
Okay?
I'll give you that one.
I think we all learned something today about look at the big picture. Because remember, history does not happen in a vacuum.
No.
It's deep, man.
I know. I've said it on the World War II channel, Time Goes channel too, because whenever people write FDR, he knew about World War II. He knew about World War II. Okay, everybody knew about World War II, but he knew about the Japanese plans. I'm like, all of these things, history doesn't happen in a vacuum. You can't just say this thing happened, so that's bad. Why? Where? How did it happen? And where can you learn about a lot of these historical things?
Discovery Channel.
I was going to say Sabaton history, but yours is good too. Okay, well, that's it for us today from the Discovery Channel.
Yay!
Insert Discovery Channel logo here, discreetly.
Yeah, the old
Smaller.
logo when they were actually showing relevant material.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Not the new one. We're going to hell. Getting sued, going to hell. Cool. All right, ladies.
Should we get started about the History Channel? All right, everyone, that's it for this week. So remember to click that bell. It's really important. Click it now. And then, hope to see you again in the near future. Bye-bye.
Another fascinating episode. Now I get the Race to the Sea. But again, as I said earlier, okay, what was that next part? Man. Yeah, I'm going to have to figure out the time. I mean, time is not something I have a great deal of these days. But I do want to figure out a way to work in the stuff on Indy's channel, because a strategic piece like that, I get the Race to the Sea, right? But then, once that didn't happen, and we talk about that trench warfare and digging in with the razor wire and the machine guns, okay, so what's next? Yeah, it's really starting to pull me in deeper than I already was. Each of their songs gets me fascinated as to the overall aspect of what happened within the Great War, but really it's those little stories in the battles that I'm starting to really get into. I've never been a fan, of war movies. And I'm still not necessarily. It's more of the factual side of it that I'm interested in. That's the part that I get drawn into, is more of, okay, this is pure fact. I don't want the Hollywood bullshit. I don't like that. I don't like Hollywood, period. I want facts. I want, dramatizations are fine as long as they're factual. Don't give me that, bullshit romance love story that, and no. What happened? So that's what's drawing me into this is, following, this Schliffen plan. Now you've dug in. Where do you go? Interesting. This was awesome. It explains the race to the sea. It explains a lot. Now I'd really like to understand why they didn't necessarily want to go to the North Sea. But I'm sure that's a whole nother episode. All right. It's now, what is it, 4:36 a.m. I got a couple more videos to record for today. I look forward to the next one. I don't know what song I'm doing next for tomorrow. We'll pick it out. We'll go from there. Until then, always remember, you know who I am and what I'm about. I'm JTMM. Like, subscribe, and share. I'm out.